I'll be honest, this isn't a revenge story. Not really. It's a story about silence, the kind that gets underestimated. I used to believe that if you just worked hard, stayed humble, and let your results speak, people would notice. But in that office, silence wasn't dignity. It was fuel for people like her. My boss, Dana. Loud, sharp, always smiling just before she sank the knife. We were in a quarterly review meeting when she finally said it. Can you just shut up for a second? It wasn't loud, but it cut through the air like glass cracking. For a moment, even the projector stopped humming. I remember standing near the whiteboard, marker still in my hand, halfway through explaining the new analytics dashboard I'd built. The same one that was saving the company hundreds of thousands in reporting errors. 20 pairs of eyes looked everywhere except at me. The new intern suddenly found her notebook fascinating. Even the VP adjusted his cufflinks, like he hadn't heard anything. Dana smiled after saying it, the kind of smile that begged for laughter. None came. She just rolled her eyes, tapped her pen against the table, and said, "Okay, moving on, moving on." My throat felt dry, but I finished the meeting like a machine. Numbers, projections, client data, automatic. The human part of me was gone, locked behind a wall of noise. When it ended, I unplugged my laptop, smiled back at her, and said, "Got it." But I didn't mean got it the way she thought. That night, I didn't rant, didn't drink, didn't text my friends or draft a post for Reddit. I just opened the company's compensation plan, because here's what most people never read, the fine print of how bonuses work. In our firm, annual performance bonuses were divided into 4 quarterly earned tranches. Each tranche became payable only when finance certified completion of key performance metrics for that quarter. Once certified, it was legally classified as earned compensation, meaning even if you resigned later, they couldn't claw it back. Guess who designed that tracking system? Me. I'd built it 2 years earlier, a web-based portal that tracked deliverables, client metrics, audit approvals, and timestamps. It was my baby. Dana didn't understand half of it. She just took credit when results looked good. There was one milestone left for Q3. I knew that if I completed and submitted it before month end, finance would have no choice but to certify it. And the payout tied to it? $72,000. I wasn't supposed to know that number exactly, but when you're the person maintaining the reporting dashboard, you see everything. That night, I read every clause in the plan document. Eligibility, separation terms, clawback rules, even the signature authority chain. I printed it out, highlighted every section, and wrote 3 words at the top. Earn, confirm, leave. It wasn't revenge. It was survival. Precision disguised as patience. The next morning, I walked into the office at 7:30 a.m. Dana wasn't in yet. Her mug was still upside down on her desk. Boss energy printed across it. I opened the dashboard, checked system logs, and saw that the Q3 milestone was sitting at 82% completion. 2 more client validation steps and 1 internal audit review, and it would be locked. I decided to make it my mission. Quietly, efficiently, invisibly. Over the next few days, I kept my head down. I answered emails in short, polite sentences. I didn't join the cafeteria gossip. When Dana tried to delegate her backlog to me, I smiled and said, "Of course." She didn't realize I was prioritizing only the work that affected my deliverables. Everything else could burn. By Wednesday, the final client data import was ready. I scheduled a review with finance, but I didn't tell her. Instead, I routed it through the system automatically, per protocol, and timestamped every upload. That afternoon, she called me into her office. "You've been quiet," she said, swirling her coffee. "Just focused," I replied. She leaned back. "You know, people who take things personally don't last long here." "I know," I said. "I've noticed." She didn't like that answer. Her smile froze for half a second, then returned like a mask snapping back into place. "Good. Keep it that way." When I left her office, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, calm, expressionless, almost detached. The kind of look you get right before you stop asking for permission. That night, I finished the milestone. Double-checked every calculation, exported logs, uploaded the audit documentation, and submitted it to finance. Timestamp, 11:57 p.m. Technically, that was 3 minutes before the quarterly cutoff. 3 minutes between humiliation and redemption. When I closed my laptop, I didn't feel triumphant. Just clear. Dana thought she'd silence me that day in the meeting. She didn't realize she'd only given me reason to listen more carefully. To the rules, the numbers, the structure she'd never bothered to understand. And when you understand the system better than the people who think they own it, you don't need to shout. You just need to wait. By Friday morning, the office had returned to its usual rhythm, fake cheerfulness layered over quiet fear. People laughed too loudly near Dana's desk, complimented her dress, and avoided looking at me. That was fine. I preferred being invisible. When you're invisible, people forget you're watching. I kept working as usual, or at least that's what it looked like. But inside, every move I made had intent. Every file I touched, every timestamp I left behind, every conversation I logged, all of it served one goal: to secure what I'd earned. Dana, meanwhile, had shifted gears from open hostility to what she probably thought was professional detachment. She stopped acknowledging me in meetings altogether. Instead, she'd rephrase my points in her own words, pretending they were hers. "As I've been saying," she began while the rest of the room nodded. I didn't interrupt, not once. Because interruptions leave noise. Noise leaves traces, and traces invite questions. I wanted my silence to look like surrender. That Monday, my calendar suddenly wiped itself clean. Every meeting, every task reminder, gone. A technical glitch, IT said. But I checked the audit log on the back end. Someone had accessed my account using a manager override at 10:03 p.m. Saturday night. Only 2 people had that level of access. Dana was one of them. Petty, predictable, perfect. Instead of confronting her, I rebuilt my schedule manually, printed everything, and stored it in a physical folder. A paper trail outside the company's system, something she couldn't erase. Tuesday, a client escalation hit our inbox. One of the biggest accounts, a logistics firm, was missing quarterly performance reports. Dana's email to me was short and vicious. "Fix this now. Don't make me look bad again." She CC'd the VP. Of course, I did fix it. But I routed every reply directly through the client and finance, ensuring the VP saw the correction timestamped with my name, not hers. I didn't copy her until it was resolved. When she replied, "Thanks," I simply wrote back, "Glad it's sorted." That glad cost her something. I could see it in her shoulders the next morning. Tight, defensive. The control she'd built through fear was slipping, grain by grain. While she obsessed over optics, I spent my lunch breaks studying the company handbook. Most people don't realize HR manuals are survival guides written in legal code. Buried inside were clauses that mattered more than any pep talk. 3.4.2 Separation of employment. An employee's final paycheck must include any earned, certified, or accrued compensation. 3.5.1 Non-discretionary bonus. Once certified by finance, bonus compensation is considered wages under federal law. 4.1.3 Retaliation. Policy. Any adverse action following a reported hostile incident is subject to review. I highlighted them all, scanned the pages, and saved them to my personal drive. Not company property, but screenshots. Then I planned the timeline. I'd already completed and submitted the milestone. Finance usually took 5 to 7 business days to certify deliverables. Once certified, the payout would hit the next payroll cycle automatically. That gave me roughly 2 weeks. 2 weeks to play the game so quietly, no one would hear the board shift. I scheduled a doctor's appointment for the following Thursday and submitted a PTO request, for that afternoon and Friday. Routine checkup, I wrote. In reality, it was to create a documented time gap, a protected period, where I could prepare my exit paperwork without interruption. Meanwhile, I reached out to two trusted colleagues, people who'd seen Dana's behavior before but never said anything out loud. I didn't ask for help, I just made sure they each had copies of my project documentation, in case I'm out unexpectedly. Redundancy, I called it. Protection, really. By the end of the week, finance confirmed receipt of the milestone packet. I got the automated email. Submission received, pending audit certification. 4 words that meant everything. That night, while most of the office was at happy hour, I stayed behind. The glow from the monitors reflected off the glass partitions, making the place look like a ghost city. I scrolled through Dana's recent emails, not illegally, just the ones she'd sent to group threads. The tone was different now, defensive. She was padding her language with we and our team instead of I. She'd sensed the wind shifting. Still, she couldn't resist one last jab. On Monday morning, she called a quick sync, her version of a public trial. Everyone gathered around the table. She projected a chart, my chart, but the formatting was off, the color scale inverted, making performance look worse. So, she said sweetly, someone's numbers don't align with finance. Care to explain? I looked at the screen, calmly. Then I said, sure, but can I share my screen instead? A pause, then a nod. I opened the live dashboard, the one tied directly to finance's database, and refreshed it. Green cells replaced her red ones. The data corrected itself in real time. The room went silent. Oh, she said softly. Maybe your version didn't sync, I offered, smiling faintly. No one laughed, but they didn't need to. Everyone understood. In a place where every interaction was power theater, that small correction was louder than any insult I could have thrown. After the meeting, I went back to my desk, opened my email, and typed, Hi, just confirming finance received certification request for the Q3 deliverables. Appreciate your time. My name. Finance replied within the hour. All set. You should see confirmation by next payroll. I leaned back in my chair. That was it. The money was already in motion, unstoppable once cued in the system. The same system she'd ignored, underestimated, and built her control around. I wasn't angry anymore, just focused. For months I'd been trying to earn her respect. Now I realized how meaningless that was. Respect wasn't something she gave. It was something you reclaimed when you stopped asking for it. When I closed my laptop that night, I already knew. The next time she told me to shut up, I wouldn't be there to hear it. There's a strange calm that comes when you know something others don't. Not because you're scheming, but because you've already done the work and they haven't noticed. That was me that week. The milestone had been submitted, finance was processing, and the $72,000 was already set in motion inside the system, like a bullet inside a barrel. Dana didn't know it yet, but her hands were already on the trigger. She just hadn't realized she was aiming at herself. Monday morning came heavy with the smell of burnt coffee and anxiety. Dana was pacing near the conference room, whispering into her phone. I didn't catch all of it, just pieces. Client deliverable, audit trail, not my signature. Her tone was brittle, defensive. The rumor mill had started grinding. Finance had flagged inconsistencies in how some of her prior reports were approved. She didn't know yet that my recent submission had locked her out of plausible deniability. By noon, she called me in. We need to review the dashboard data for Q3 again, she said flatly. No, please. No, thank you. I followed her into the glass-walled meeting room. She gestured at the chair. I stayed standing. Your upload, she began, was sent to finance without my final approval. That's correct, I said. Per Protocol 5.1, once the deliverable passes internal validation, it goes straight to finance for certification. Manager approval isn't required, her nostrils flared. Since when? Since the last compliance update. You approved that policy revision in March. She froze for half a second. It wasn't long, but it was enough. That flicker, the exact moment someone realizes the trap, was built months before they even saw it. Fine, she said. Next time, make sure I'm looped in. Of course, I said, and smiled. That afternoon, I added something to the record, a short note inside the project's documentation portal. Manager reviewed deliverable metrics verbally on date. No objections raised. Proceeded with finance submission as per policy. The note was time-stamped, read only, and mirrored in the audit logs. A subtle digital fingerprint tying her to the final sign-off. I wasn't forging anything, just recording the truth she didn't bother to track. It was the lever Archimedes promised. Give me one firm place to stand, and I'll move the world. By Wednesday, finance emailed confirmation. Q3 milestone certified, payout authorized. A simple, sterile sentence that meant the money was mine. Legally, irrevocably. I took a screenshot, saved the PDF copy of the certification, and backed it up to 2 separate drives. One personal, one cloud. Then I drafted my resignation letter, dated for the following Friday, 9:00 a.m. That timing mattered. Payroll hit Friday at 8:00 a.m. My letter would arrive 1 hour later. Thursday, Dana called an all-hands meeting. The kind that looked spontaneous but was clearly planned to showcase control. She opened with a PowerPoint deck, my slides rearranged. We've made great progress, she said. Our Q3 targets were aggressive, but the team... She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me sitting quietly in the back. Everything okay? I asked, calm as a surgeon. Yes, she snapped, just verifying some numbers. She clicked to the next slide, and that's when it happened. The new figures hadn't updated properly. The real-time data feed still carried my credentials. The slide showed data source. My name, finance certified. Her face paled. Someone in the front whispered, Wait, didn't she say she finalized it? Dinah laughed too loudly. Oh, right, minor tech issue. It's fine. But it wasn't fine. Everyone could feel it. The room had changed. The quiet, invisible authority she once wielded had evaporated in front of a wall of graphs, and her own digital oversight. After the meeting, she cornered me in the hallway. What game are you playing? She hissed. No game, I said. Just following procedure, like you always said. Her eyes flickered with something, fear maybe, or the first hint of realization that she wasn't in control anymore. That night, I stayed late again, not to work, just to clean up. I organized my desk, cleared my inbox of personal files, formatted a flash drive with neutral backups, nothing proprietary, and packed my plant into a paper bag. At 10:03 p.m., I sent one last email to myself, from my company account to my personal one, an automated export of my timesheets, approvals, and certifications, everything that proved I'd earned what was coming. I went home and slept better than I had in months. Friday morning, 7:58 a.m., I logged into my bank app. The notification was already there. Incoming deposit, $72,000, payroll compensation. I didn't smile. Not yet. I just stared at the number, solid and undeniable, like a weight shifting from one side of the scale to the other. At 9:00 a.m. exactly, I walked into Dana's office. She was on a call, mid-sentence, pretending to sound confident. I placed a white envelope on her desk. She covered the receiver. What's this? My resignation, I said. Her lips parted. Wait, what? Now? Effective immediately. She blinked, processing. You can't just... We have deliverables, client calls. I've completed all assigned work, I said evenly. Finance certified it on Wednesday. Payroll processed this morning. You should have the report in your inbox. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For once, she was the one silenced. I turned to leave. She called after me, You'll regret this. I looked back just once. Maybe, but not today. By the time I reached the elevator, the first HR email hit her inbox. Employee separation initiated. Please schedule equipment, return courier. Corporate machinery at its finest. Efficient, emotionless, irreversible. As the doors closed, I caught my reflection in the mirrored panel. Calm, still. Not triumphant, not bitter, just free. The best part? The bonus wasn't the revenge. It was proof that you don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Not when you understand exactly where to pull. The elevator doors closed on the last thing Dana ever said to me. You'll regret this. But I didn't. I'd spent too long regretting silence. This time, I let silence do the work for me. By the time I hit the lobby, the company's internal HR bot had already processed my separation. The system time-stamped everything. Resignation received, payroll confirmed, benefits termination pending next cycle. Bureaucracy might be cold, but it's precise, and precision was my weapon now. I stepped outside into the kind of morning that feels like a reset. Sky too bright, air too clean. My badge was still warm in my pocket. I didn't toss it. I'd scheduled a courier to pick it up Monday per policy. Another small rule followed, another door quietly locked behind me. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Dana. Dana. What the hell is this? You can't just leave without a transition. Me. According to Section 3.4.2, I can. My deliverables are complete. Donna. You think this is over? HR is going to claw back your bonus. Me. They can't. It's certified wages. Check with finance. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. At 9:18 a.m., a second buzz. This time from payroll. Payroll. Just confirming you received your Q3 payout? Congrats and best of luck. I smiled for the first time that day. I took my coffee to the park near the office, the one I'd passed every morning but never had time to enjoy. It was quiet, except for a gardener trimming hedges. I sat down, scrolled through my emails, and began archiving my life. Each deletion felt like unclipping a tether, but karma, like gravity, doesn't need an invitation. It just arrives when the balance shifts. Around noon, my former coworker Sam texted me. Sam, you didn't hear this from me, but Dana's losing it. Apparently, finance flagged her for signing off metrics she didn't review. Your submission triggered some audit filter. Me. That wasn't intentional. Sam. Sure it wasn't. The irony hit me. Dana had been so desperate to control everything she'd left her name stamped across an automated trail that no one could alter. Every false report, every unverified approval, every adjusted number was traceable now, because my milestone data had to reconcile with hers. By 3 p.m., the storm had started. HR emailed me, not to revoke anything but to schedule an exit interview to understand the circumstances of your resignation. Translation, damage control, I declined politely. Per Section 4.1.3, I prefer to submit a written statement. I drafted it that night. A calm, factual summary of events. I didn't accuse or dramatize, just described. The meeting where she told me to shut up. The subsequent exclusion from communications. The system tampering, and the timing of my final deliverable certification. I included attachments, emails, timestamps, audit logs, evidence without emotion. I sent it to HR and CC'd the compliance officer. 1 minute later, my phone buzzed. HR, received. We appreciate your professionalism. 2 minutes later, another buzz, this time from an old client contact. Client, hey, just heard you left. They said you were on personal leave. We still have your number, right? Could use your help on a new project. Not through them. The words hit me harder than the payout. I realized I wasn't just leaving the job. I was leaving a system built to keep people like me quiet. The next morning, I turned on my phone to a flood of messages. Co-workers, ex-clients, even the IT guy. Bro, Dana's locked out of her account. Apparently compliance is doing a full review. Someone from corporate flew in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was confirmation. Cause and effect. The weight of choices returning to their source. Later that week, HR called again. Not to argue, but to confirm return logistics. Please don't bring equipment in person, they said. Courier pickup has been arranged. I almost laughed. The same process Dana once bragged about streamlining was now being used to erase her name from the system. By Wednesday, her LinkedIn went dark. No title, no activity, just silence. Rumor said she'd been placed on administrative leave pending the audit's findings. I didn't celebrate, not out loud, but I did pour a glass of wine and watch the city lights flicker through my window. I thought about that meeting, the one where she'd told me to shut up. I could still see the faces in the room, frozen between fear and compliance. How quiet everyone had been, how quiet I had been. And now that same quiet had undone her. There's a particular kind of justice that doesn't need applause. It doesn't show up in headlines or HR memos. It happens in data fields, timestamps, and finance systems that don't bend to charm or intimidation. It happens when the machine she used to control decides it no longer recognizes her authority. I checked my bank account again that night. The $72,000 sat untouched, not a single cent spent. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was proof. Proof that patience could be sharper than anger, and silence could echo louder than shouting. At 10 p.m., I closed my laptop and deleted my company login bookmark. The glow of the screen faded from my face, leaving nothing but reflection. That was the moment I realized something simple but final. She'd told me to shut up. So I did. And when I did, the system finally spoke for me. Corporate gossip travels faster than truth. But in this case, they arrived together. It started on a Tuesday morning, a full week after I'd left. I was eating breakfast when my phone buzzed with a message from Sam, my old coworker. Sam. Dude, you didn't hear this from me, but Dana's under investigation, finance and legal. Someone reported her for data manipulation. I didn't reply immediately. I just kept scrolling through my toast crumbs, pretending not to feel anything. But curiosity, that old instinct, tugged at me. Me. What exactly did they find? Sam. Apparently your project triggered an auto audit. They discovered her signature on 3 certifications she never actually reviewed. She tried to blame you, but the timestamps didn't match. The timestamps. Always the timestamps. Dana had built her empire on perception, always looking busy, talking louder than anyone else, making people believe she was indispensable. But perception doesn't survive audit logs. They don't care about charisma, just sequence. By noon, I started hearing from others. The whispers spread like wildfire. Dana had been temporarily relieved of duties pending review. HR speak for suspended without access. Her laptop confiscated, her account disabled, her Slack profile replaced by the gray silhouette of absence. She must have known it was coming. The quiet before the fall. The company had started interviewing her direct reports, combing through client communications. Every time she'd taken shortcuts, deleted threads, adjusted numbers to make quarterly targets look shinier, all of it now surfaced through the automated report trail that I had architected. Poetic symmetry at its cleanest. I didn't celebrate, not really. But I did take a long walk that day, the kind of walk you take when you finally realize the ground beneath you isn't shaking anymore. Then around 3 p.m., my inbox pinged with an unexpected name, Carla, Corporate Compliance. As Carla, Compliance. Hello, name. We're conducting an internal review of Q3 reporting procedures and found your documentation extremely thorough. Would you be available for a brief clarification call? I agreed, out of professional courtesy and a touch of curiosity. The next morning, I joined the call. It wasn't an interrogation, it was almost friendly. Carla, you built the analytics dashboard, correct? Me. Yes, I did. Carla. And you submitted your milestone directly through finance? Me. Correct. Per updated policy. Carla. Interesting. That's what triggered the certification audit. Your submission was the only one properly logged. I stayed quiet. Carla, after a pause. We appreciate your diligence. It prevented what could have been a significant compliance breach. When the call ended, I sat for a while, letting the irony sink in. The very system Dana had mocked me for being too technical about, the system she said was unnecessary detail, had just saved the company from regulatory trouble, saved them and buried her. A few days later, Sam texted again. Sam, she's gone, officially. Email from HR says she resigned, for personal reasons. Everyone knows that means she was forced out. Me, wow, quick turnaround. Sam, yeah. Word is, legal found she'd been taking credit for deliverables tied to your work. The CFO's furious. I put my phone down and stared at the ceiling. Not in triumph, in reflection. Because the truth is, revenge rarely feels like a victory. It feels like balance being restored after too long of leaning the wrong way. Later that week, I went back through my old notebook, the one I'd kept through every tense meeting, every late night. On the very last page, under the words, earn, confirm, leave, I added one more. Watch, because that's all I had to do now. Watch the world adjust itself. A week after Dana's resignation, I got another email, this time from an unfamiliar name, Julia Hartman, Director of Client Operations. Julia, hi name. I came across your work through finance and compliance. Impressive structure. Would you be open to discussing a position with our new division? It wasn't lost on me that Julia's division used to report directly to Dana. We scheduled a call. She was professional, respectful, direct, the exact opposite of what I'd left behind. Julia, your process documentation is exceptional. We want to rebuild some of our systems from the ground up, the right way, with your approach. I didn't say yes immediately, but I didn't say no either. When the call ended, I realized something. I wasn't running from what happened anymore. I was walking toward what came next. That night, I got one last message from Sam. Sam, she's suing or trying to, claims she was set up. Me, good luck with that. Sam, yeah, her lawyer probably saw the audit trail by now. No case. She's done. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I opened my bank app again. The $72,000 was still there, untouched, whole. But now it looked different. It wasn't just money. It was the proof of patience, the receipt of restraint. Outside my window, the city lights blinked like static. Somewhere out there, Dana was probably drafting her next move, spinning her story to whoever would listen. But the truth had already calcified in systems she couldn't edit. And me? I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. Funny thing about karma, people think it's dramatic. It's not. Karma is paperwork. Karma is compliance reports. Karma is when your own email history becomes the evidence you can't deny. And somewhere between the silence of my apartment and the glow of that $72,000 line in my account, I realized I hadn't beaten her. I'd simply stopped letting her win. Peace doesn't arrive with applause. It comes quietly, like the click of a send button or the soft thud of a door closing behind you for the last time. It had been a month since I left the company, long enough for my phone to stop vibrating every hour with gossip, long enough for the story to shift from Dana's meltdown to new management restructuring. The world moves on fast, even when it's falling apart. For me, life had slowed to something better. Mornings started with sunlight instead of email alerts. Coffee tasted like coffee, not anxiety. My laptop no longer opened to dashboards and deliverables, just a blank page. I spent those first few weeks decompressing, traveling nowhere, seeing no one. I didn't need the noise. I needed silence, the same silence she once used to humiliate me. Only now it belonged to me. One afternoon, I met with Julia Hartman, the new director who'd reached out. We sat in a quiet cafe with exposed brick walls and too many plants. She got straight to the point. I want to rebuild the analytics department, she said. Properly this time. Transparent systems, fair credit, accountability. It was the same system I'd built before, but without the parasites. Julia, I won't lie. Cleaning up the mess Dana left behind won't be easy, but we'd like you to lead that effort as a consultant at first. Me. Consultant? Julia. High pay, full autonomy. You choose your hours, your people, your methods. There was something poetic about that. The same machine that once chewed me up now asking me to redesign its gears. And I didn't answer right away. I looked out the window. The same city that once felt suffocating now looked wide open. Me. I'll think about it. And I meant it. Because for the first time, I didn't need the job. I had choices. That night, I came home, poured a drink, and opened my bank app again. The $72,000 still sat there, untouched, a quiet monument to patience. I could have spent it, but I didn't. It wasn't fuel for indulgence. It was proof of endurance. Sometimes you keep a trophy, not because you need to display it, but because you need to remember how heavy it was to earn. Later, I got an email from HR, not mine, but the one I used to avoid like the plague. HR. Hi, name. This is just a courtesy note. We wanted to let you know the internal investigation related to your former manager has concluded. Thank you for your cooperation earlier. Your documentation helped ensure a fair outcome. No details, no gossip. Just a sterile confirmation of closure. But I didn't need the details. I already knew how those stories ended. Dana was gone. Maybe blacklisted. Maybe somewhere giving motivational speeches about resilience. People like her always find a way to rebrand. But that wasn't my concern anymore. I'd learned something during all this. Something no bonus or title could buy. The power of walking away after you've already won. Most people think revenge is about striking back. It's not. It's about knowing you don't have to. Because real revenge doesn't scream. It signs the paperwork, gets paid, and disappears. Weeks turned into months. I started freelancing, small projects at first, but the kind that actually respected boundaries. Clients who didn't bark orders but asked questions. Deadlines that felt like agreements, not threats. Sometimes, late at night, I'd think back to that meeting, the moment she told me to shut up. I could still see the room, smell the burnt projector bulb, feel the hum of quiet humiliation. But now the memory didn't sting. It just reminded me where I came from. I'd learned that silence isn't weakness, it's potential. Silence is the space before something changes. Silence is the sound of control returning to your hands. One morning I woke up to another email from Julia. Julia, hope you've been well. Just wanted to share. We launched the new reporting system last night. Finance says it's flawless. You were right about the certification lock process. Thank you again. Attached was a screenshot of the new interface. Clean, simple, secure. My design rebuilt under new management, with credit finally given where it belonged. At the bottom, a small note. System architect, my name. That line was worth more than the $72,000. So I closed the email and stepped out onto the balcony. The city below buzzed with its usual chaos. Horns, voices, deadlines. Somewhere, someone else was probably being told to shut up in another meeting. Maybe they'd take it. Maybe they'd fight back. Or maybe they'd do what I did. Listen, learn, wait, and let gravity handle the rest. The funny thing about falling empires is they never actually hear the collapse. It happens quietly, between reports, between timestamps, between breaths. And when it's over, the silence that follows doesn't belong to the people who shouted the loudest. It belongs to the ones who listened. I took a sip of my coffee, glanced at the bank balance one last time, and closed the app for good. The number didn't matter anymore. Because somewhere in that silence, in the stillness between what was and what's next, I'd already gotten everything I came for. Peace. And the satisfaction of knowing that when she said shut up, she never realized I actually would, just not in the way she expected.